This is how we do every day. We be grinding, and if you wanna come and test us,
if you love them enough to turn off your music and pretend like their music is your music.
This is Mommy's jam.
Then surely you'll check nhtsa.gov/the right seat to make sure they're in the right car seat.
Let's play it again.
Check today at nhtsa.gov/the right seat. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
1 in 3 adults has prediabetes. 1 in 3. That means it could be you, your football buddy, your football buddy, or you, your best man, your worst man, you, your dog walker, your cat jogger. While 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes, with early diagnosis, prediabetes can be reversed. Take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org. That's doihaveprediabetes.org.
Wait, did they just say 1 in 3 adults has prediabetes? That's 33.33333% of adults. That means it could be me, my boss, or my boss's boss, or me, my favorite sister, or my other sister. That's 7 members of my 21-person romantic book club. Wait, the 1 in 3 could be me, my karaoke partner Carol, or my karaoke enemy Jeff. I'm going to take the risk test at doihaveprediabetes.org.
Brought to you by the Ad Council and its Prediabetes Awareness Partners.
Coming at you live from the heart of Lincoln, America. This is the Don't Punt Hour with former Nebraska receiver.
Throwing over the middle, completes the pass. He's got speed to the end zone. Touchdown! 45 yards.
And return specialist. This time he beats the kicker and one more. DeMornay Pierson-El.
Not only does the sideline have confidence in Pierson-El, but Pierson-El has confidence in Pierson-El.
On 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
All right, welcome back into Ticket Weeknights. My name is Harrison Arns on the ones and twos. As always, we got the host, DeMornay Pierson-El, streaming in as we are officially in Big Ten Media Days. Nebraska hasn't talked yet, but they will be talking tomorrow. So in the meantime, we'll talk some college football, maybe some NFL as well. And if you guys want to join in, 402-464-5685. You can also join the streams. That's Facebook, YouTube, Allo, Channel 961. X, Twitter, whichever one you want to call it. Let's bring him in. DeMornay Pierson-El, how's it going on a Tuesday night?
It's going good, not too bad. You know, I can smell football right around the corner, so I'm getting excited.
Yeah, I am too. I maybe a little bit too excited. I still got to try to tamper expectations, as there is a little bit of buzz about Nebraska. As always, it's still got that national pull despite the record. But more and more people are starting to put some real, not crowning them, but in that mode where it does feel like this is a prove-it year. You should have the pieces in play based on recruiting, that anything outside of bowling is incredibly disappointing.
So my question to that is, why is it that the narrative, or why is it necessarily, seem like that's exactly what it is? I understand high standards and everything like that. I just don't get, you just automatically get thrown, into that. Bowl game is realistically, I think so. But I mean, year 2 of a coach, what's your honest opinion or honest thoughts, about stuff? Like, are you drinking the Kool-Aid, or?
I think 7 wins.
7?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not saying college football playoffs.
No.
That seems pretty a reach. That's one where I'm like, okay, let's draw the line here somewhat. Year 2, there should be momentum. I mean, we keep talking about it. If the quarterback situation is just halfway better,
period.
You're bowling last year. If the special teams is a little more consistent, and I'll stick with Alvano. Tough year. Yeah, I mean, he came straight from high school, and this is one thing we got to remember with Alvano. He was kind of it. If he wasn't scoring, the team wasn't scoring. I think that pressure gets overlooked sometimes. Like, he had to make all of those because they were so rare in between. And if they missed it, I mean, Nebraska wasn't scoring a lot of touchdowns either. Mm-hmm. So I think I'll defend him a little bit, but definitely needs to be cleaned up.
It's like I said, you have a true freshman quarterback. to come in. Like I said, it's going to be two things for me. One, quarterback play, of course. I think everybody realizes that position on what things is. But I mean, you're pretty much giving a 18, 19-year-old kid keys to the palace. Like that comes with a lot, being especially a quarterback at the University of Nebraska. So depending on how healthy you can keep him, and we've seen that before, with Adrian. Adrian came onto the scene, he took some good shots and everything like that. But I think it goes back to quarterback play and how well would his offensive line be. We will only be as good as long as they can protect halfway decent or more a little bit more than decent. I think if you get that situation solved and whatnot, and like I said, I mean, you brought in some transfer guys, you brought in some SEC guys, you brought in some older guys to kind of give some a little bit more glue into some things where people who've played a lot of games, who've seen a lot of things. So I mean, as long as they gel together and they stay healthy, I think we'll be fine. But if people don't see things what they want to see within the first 3 games, it's like, look, you also have a true freshman quarterback. Like, it's not going to look like Tommy Frazier back in the day in '95. Like, that's not the expectation. Like, he has to kind of learn to play at this level. Not to say that he can't or something will be wrong, but it's an adjustment to kind of get in the swing of things, especially at that position. You got to know everything: protection, coverages, audibles. And then you have to go out there and still play. So it's just crazy to where people get to and forget that this game isn't easy at all.
Yeah. Well, I agree with you. Just seeing pictures of Dylan Raiola as they had the Husker Road Race not too long ago. It's a good opportunity for fans to go meet up some of the players. And it's like, not his fault, but you look at Dylan Raiola and it's just like, damn, this guy's young. Like, he looks like a kid still. So I don't want to put all this pressure that he is the savior, maybe in due time. But
we've seen that before with deeming somebody the savior, and we see how fast that got up out of there. So please, let's not.
To be honest, should have gotten out here a lot faster. Now, the hindsight being 2020, my Lord, I think we tried to hold on to that title a little too long here, and we're paying the price for it. Well, maybe not. Let's see how year 2 with Matt Rule goes. But let's talk about Big Ten Media Days. Nebraska obviously did not speak today. They will speak tomorrow. They are with the likes of Iowa, Michigan State, Nebraska, and then they'll bring in Penn State as well, and then they'll bring in some of these new teams from the Pac-12 entering UCLA, USC, and for Nebraska, who's all heading down there? Obviously, Matt Rule, the safety Isaac Gifford, defensive tackle Ty Robinson, and Ben Scott at center. It's kind of 2 years in a row where Nebraska pulls an oddball on which guys we're bringing. Do you read into much on who we bring to these things? Because I don't know. Nebraska doesn't ever try to bring a lot of attention with it. It seems bizarre, but they're pretty lackluster on the guys they pick.
No, I mean, it's a bit odd, but then again, Rule is doing things for a certain reason. He had a bunch of, team captains or dude that changed their numbers over 2 years ago, or, guys who led the team. And I'm pretty sure that the people that he brought to that are some of those people. If you check last year, I'm pretty sure that the 3 guys that he picked were one of the 6 or 7 guys that, he deemed team leaders. So I mean, it's you get a different feel of things. I mean, clearly people are going to talk about the defensive coach parting ways or whatnot. So you got 2 guys who's kind of been in the system a little bit that can probably handle and articulate that question a little bit better.
That's a good point.
So I mean, it's a method to the madness. So I get that, from a standpoint. Of course, I'm glad he didn't take, one of the freshman quarterbacks. I feel like that is something that would need to be earned, not given. So, I mean, taking an offensive lineman, I mean, they're probably one of the older guys on the team. If you look at the wide receiver room is young. Tight end room, I mean, you got, Fedoni there.
Still got Morganshire as well.
Running backs, they're still young, sophomores and everything like that. So I mean, you took an older offensive guy. That means he can answer again questions about offensive line, how things were different over the years. That he's been here and whatnot. So I don't think it's necessarily. I think it's actually a smart strategy.
And you saying that about the leaders, that adds up with last year too. I think a lot of people are like, why is Ethan Piper, not a guy you were maybe thinking of heading down to it? And as the season went on, you hear Matt Rule talk more and more about Ethan Piper being a leader of that team. And sure enough, he was one of the guys last year who was there. Maybe just simply as we're not going there for media and clicks, more of just to represent Nebraska with guys I trust. And
Exactly.
that's probably all it really comes down to. Because at this point in the season, you're more worried about winning games than I think you are just the fine details of social media. But if you're at this, if you got the microphone, what are the questions you'd even want to ask Nebraska? What do you want out of this for answers, or just even some new insight on where this program's at right now?
Questions that I would ask.
Is Evan Cooper a fair question to ask right off the bat?
Yes.
I think that's probably the first one I ask.
I mean, I'm pretty sure you're going to get the basic standard, kind of beat around the bush and kind of not answer it type question. For sure, something along the lines of that. But what are your goals what are your goals, for your freshman quarterbacks? You got guys coming in. How do you help them adjust to being on the big stage? And Dylan has been on the big stage and everything like that, but you have two freshman quarterbacks. One of them is probably going to be the starter. No offense against Harburg, that's just what it is. So what have you done to necessarily speed them up or get them more comfortable to where we won't see a pop and then things just phase out?
Yeah, I think I'd be right along those same lines there. I'd also be curious. I'd want to really double down on what he said earlier about this team feeling like it's ready to have that breakout season, and even mentioning flirting with the idea of the college football playoffs. Now, he did say if not this year, then next year.
Yeah.
So he gave himself kind of a 2-year window, not end all be all this year. But I'd love to bring that comments back up to him and see if he just doubles down on it again. If he's still confident, or if he tries pulling back a little bit. Because if he pulls back a little bit, that's going to tell you a lot about coach speak early on. That I think that's on the top of my head, because I'm not sure yet. I'm not willing to buy it that we're right around the corner.
Like I said, you get a veteran quarterback and you beef up that line and whatnot. You got athletes on the outside, and clearly, depending on how long the Tony stays, to see how things go. I mean, you have pieces and whatnot. Another big question that I would ask, not necessarily comparing the teams, but in year two, in the places that you have rebuilt and brought back, or had success, how closely related or how close of the process does Nebraska compare to what those teams look like? Is it knocking on the door? Are we above schedule? Are we right on the schedule? Or are they about even? I kind of think that will kind of give you some insight also as well to how the team will be for the year. Because if you look at where he was at with Temple, where he was at with Baylor, year two, he took off. And
Yeah.
I'm not saying, that he can't or whatnot, but and those conferences are a little bit different than the Big Ten. So I just kind of want to see where he thinks at, with his mind and his words, with how relatively close are either one of those situations similar to what he's in now, or is this a completely different monster?
Yeah, I'd imagine this is one of the more favorable positions he's been able to hop in. I mean, Baylor was a nightmare. The fact that he got that thing turned around at all with every allegation under the moon against that program is.
But you still Baylor. But when that happened, Baylor was still a top team. Baylor still had, athletes there. And this is before, necessarily the transfer portal and everything like that. So, I mean, you had a few kids leave, but I mean,
when he got there, everyone was gone, if I remember correctly. I think they got hit
hard.
terrible. Yeah, I think he was pretty much walking into a rebuild. We'll have to, when I go to break, we'll clarify that for everybody listening. Or 402-464-5685, if you got it on top of your head. What were the punishments handed to Baylor when Matt Rule got there? Because he was just simply there to clean it up. Nobody expected it to even go that well. He was kind of going to be a scapegoat if it got any worse. But yeah, I'd be curious because in Nebraska, he's in a situation where the talent's a lot better than he's ever had before. But at the same time, the competition's a lot harder than he's ever consistently had to play. Yeah. And now you add these other teams in here, the Pac-12. We just talked about the Pac-2 yesterday, but the former Pac-12 teams heading in. UCLA, USC, they're going to be on tomorrow's slate with Nebraska and the other Big Ten teams. What would you ask USC or the UCLA for those Pac-12 schools? I think USC could be a pretty interesting one as well, just because obviously the national attention they get, and they do kind of on that fringe of how good can we really expect them to be, and is their defense going to be able to keep up at all with this kind of Big Ten schedule?
The physicality. I mean, it's not the SEC, but it's the closest thing to it.
Yeah.
So my question to USC is, I mean, of course, they're another prestigious university that expects a lot and whatnot. Well, what do you think is the ceiling for this team? Because they had a young team, honestly, they really did.
Yeah.
They had some young guys on defense. They had some young guys on offense, and you had Caleb, making things. So, what is necessarily the ceiling, and how do you think the players will feel about, or how do you simulate the cold weather, playing in the wind and everything like that? Like because if you get late October going into November, you can't just air this thing out because of the Midwest wind. And like I said, I think they kind of did their schedule favorable. I think if you catch a old Pac-12 team early in their season, they're going to be stronger than late. So how do you adjust to conditions where you're not going to be playing in the Pacific West? You're not going to be playing, in Oregon. You're not going to be playing, in Washington, where the weather isn't as what it's going to be in the Midwest. So how do you plan to attack that when you got Southern California guys, you got Arizona, guys, Nevada guys who all they know is heat, like pretty much fair weather. It might be cold, but I mean their code is 75.
Yeah,
their code is 70. They're 668. That's an average day in the Midwest. That's not cold.
Yeah, not at all. It's interesting. I think that's a great question because this geography thing, I think it gets overlooked all the time. Because this is the other thing we've learned about, from the Big Ten commissioner today as we kind of starting this thing up. The Friday night games, I mean, those have a wrinkle effect. It's not just the Friday, it's everything before and after. It throws off your entire schedule. Nebraska's got 2 of them this year, and hinted at today from the Big Ten commissioner that this is going to maybe have a few more and continue to grow as this thing plans out. Your thoughts on Friday night games? Because what I was thinking of, I'm like, you're going to tell UCLA, throw them a Friday game, and they got to go say over to Rutgers. And that's not only the athletes, that's the staff. They got to take classes off. Probably you're messing with the whole university when you do that type of stuff.
It sucks. It definitely does. I'm not a huge fan of the Friday night games just because growing up, you play high school on Friday. Saturday, that's college, NFL, Sunday throughout the week. So I'm not a huge fan of it. Hopefully, they kind of taper down on that if you really respect and all kids' safety and whatnot and everything like that. Like, look at, actually what it's doing. The NFL does it, but I mean, you're a paid professional. You'll play a Monday night game and still play Sunday.
And their practices are probably a lot more.
Way more tapered down. There gets to a certain, like I said, there gets to a certain point in the league to where you can't even wear pads. There gets to a certain point to where you got to be off the field by 3:00. Like there's no, you got to be out of the building by 5. Like you got to leave. Like, so there are certain things that the NFL has put in place to where you don't run guys into the ground. And at the end of the day, these are college kids. These are growing, young adults. You don't want to, mess them too much up just with, recovering and playing too fast. 2 Friday night games. And I mean, the last one of the year, that's fine. I'm not worried about that. If it's, within the first 2 or 3 weeks of college football, maybe would preferably that way you get it out the way and you can kind of, it's already dealt with. But anything outside of that, I mean, again, it's a money deal. It's not necessarily all the universities is putting up for that.
Yeah, and that's what it is. It's TV deals, right? Who's got a good pricey time slot for Friday? You know, how much you willing to pay? And that's why they're doing it. It's not because, I think it is. That's all it is. It's just money. It's unfortunate, but that's where we are. It's TV deals are deciding the future of college football and which conferences gets to stay or live. That's my whole, this is my whole beef with college football today is like, it's not even the NCAA ruling over it as like a sovereign body anymore. It's TV deals decide who plays where and when. And it's just kind of been going that way worse and worse and worse. So I'm not a big fan of the Friday night games. I'm tired of money just kind of taking over on those decisions. That's absolutely what it is. I don't see any other reason why you would be doing it. But that being said, though, we will throw it to break. We'll talk a bit more college football. And if we got time for it, we'll talk some NFL as well. So don't go anywhere. We'll keep it rolling. We got the Don't Punt Hour with the morning Pierson-El. Talk to you in a little bit.
Football season is nearly here, and your long year 2 of Matt Rule is almost over. Gear up for the season with 93.7 The Ticket's coverage of Big Ten Media Days from July 23rd to the 25th, live from Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. Jay Foreman, Amon Green, Adam Carricker, Chancellor Brewington, Derek Pearson, Steve Sipple, Jake Sorensen, and Nick Sainer will be in Indy for our shows Tuesday through Thursday. Getting the latest news from Nebraska and everyone else around the conference. Coverage of Big Ten Media Days is brought to you by 1890 Nebraska, Stevens and Smith Construction, The Complex, Warhorse Casino, and Riddles Jewelry.
Mario fue pintor más de 30 años. Cuando me dijo que se le estaban olvidando las cosas, fue difícil. Un día me dijeron que pintara el marco del lado por dentro y pinté el lado de afuera.
Yo le diría a la gente que le diga a su familia lo que está pasando con él.
Si algo se nota diferente, podría ser Alzheimer. Es momento de hablarlo. Visita alz.org/nuestras historias para saber más. Un mensaje de the Alzheimer's Association y the Ad Council.
The Nebraska legislature will soon meet in special session and may consider a vote to raise consumer prices by imposing a sales tax on advertising. Nebraska's small businesses would be hit hardest, forcing them to raise prices, meaning we'd all pay more for the things we need. Contact your state senator and tell them no ad tax. Visit noadtaxnebraska.com to find your senator's contact information. That's noadtaxnebraska.com. A message from the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Whether you like fishing together or fishing to get away, for the thrill of reeling in a big one, or just going out to have a good time, on the banks of your local pond, at a bend in a river, or on one of our many lakes and reservoirs, you'll always find the perfect place to cast a line. Here, beneath Nebraska skies. Start planning your next fishing adventure today at letsfishnebraska.com. Sponsored by Nebraska Game and Parks, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Your child was embarrassed when you arrived at their basketball game. 75% of parents or guardians report current alcohol use. Drinking alcohol can cause harm to children and loved ones. By drinking less, your child will be excited to see you at their basketball game. If you or a loved one is looking for help, find a treatment facility near you at findtreatment.gov. For immediate support, call, text, or chat 988.
Brought to you by Nebraska DHHS in partnership with SAMHSA.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 a.m, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Are you a veteran looking for a new companion animal? A dog, a cat, or maybe something else? The Nebraska Department of Veterans Affairs Vets Get Pets program can cover up to $350 of your pet adoption fees. Visit veterans.nebraska.gov/vetsgetpets to learn more about program requirements and how to apply. Want to help support the program? Get your Vets Get Pets specialty license plates from the Nebraska DMV. Sponsored by the Nebraska Department of Veterans Affairs. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
This is area race announcer James Rowland. Join me and Bree Fan Steel every Sunday night from 7 to 8 on 93.7 The Ticket for the Finish Line, where we cover all things motorsports from local racing to racing around the world. Every Sunday night from 7 to 8 on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Football season is nearly here, and your long wait for year 2 of Matt Rule is almost over. Gear up for the season with 93.7 The Ticket's coverage of Big Ten Media Days from July 23rd to the 25th, live from Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. Jay Foreman, Amon Green, Adam Carricker, Chancellor Brewington, Derek Pearson, Steve Sipple, Jake Sorensen, and Nick Sainer will be in Indy for our shows Tuesday through Thursday. Getting the latest news from Nebraska and everyone else around the conference. Coverage of Big Ten Media Days is brought to you by 1890 Nebraska, Stevens and Smith Construction, The Complex, Warhorse Casino, and Riddles Jewelry.
Mario fue pintor más de 30 años. Cuando me dijo que se le estaban olvidando las cosas, fue difícil. Un día me dijeron que pintara el marco del lado por dentro y pinté el lado de afuera.
Yo le diría a la gente que le diga a su familia lo que está pasando con él.
Si algo se nota diferente, podría ser Alzheimer. Es momento de hablarlo. Visita alz.org/nuestras historias para saber más. Un mensaje de The Alzheimer's Association y The Ad Council.
This is the Don't Punt Hour on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Here is your host, Demorne Pierson-El.
All right, welcome in. Second segment of the Don't Punt Hour. Harrison Arns on the 1s and 2s at the 1040 Ticket Studios. If you guys want to join in, 402-464-5685. As I said, second segment here, and we're going to keep talking some college football. We did get the big media preseason polls. Those came out for us, and we're going to go through those, look at these in order, and kind of go by votes on who was leading by the most, and then decide if there's anything on this list we'd like to switch around. So, good morning, Pierson-El. I'll let you take a wild stab at it. But for the Big Ten preseason media polls, who's number one with the addition of these new Pac-12 schools?
Ohio State.
Yeah, Ohio State, not even really close. They got a 20-point lead, 21-vote lead on that one. Number two.
I want to say SC or Oregon.
Oregon, yeah. This is where it gets interesting for me. So Ohio State, Oregon, I'm okay with both of those. I got no problem, especially with Chip Kelly up there with Ryan Day, and you got Jim Harbaugh's gone. I mean, this thing feels like Ohio State should be able to kind of go back on top in terms of dominating the Big Ten. How close is Oregon if you think Ohio State's won and Oregon or USC's two?
Not close.
Okay, arm and a leg away. Number three, Penn State.
That was my third choice, which I agree. I would say Penn State and Oregon are probably closer than anything.
Well, Penn State's going to be interesting this year too, because they're gonna be hungry. I mean, this is a year where they can absolutely get into the college football playoffs, as they've just been forever on the fringe of it, and then unfortunately, they just have to. It sucks for them. I mean, they just have to play Ohio State and Michigan every year, and they get 2 losses, and then they're out. And it's just that over and over and over. If they could have been, in the other division before it's all just one big one, they would have had some chances at some Big Ten championships. Could have pulled a Northwestern one year, and maybe they could have been in there. But they'll have a chance now. So it's 12 teams. Number 4, Michigan. Yep. Where are we at with Michigan? I think.
Respectively, they're still the national champs. You got a coach that coached through some controversy when Harbaugh stepped away and whatnot. You still have athletes, and they're still probably one of the more dominant programs in the country to this day. So I mean, I think that's fair to put them at that position.
Speaking of Michigan, you're talking about that controversy. I forgot to bring this up yesterday as it broke out. Have you noticed the new Netflix docuseries that's going to be coming out?
That didn't take long. I'm actually kind of surprised that he didn't, sign no NDA or anything like that. So that'll be interesting to kind of see, from his point of view and perspective, especially with stuff still being so recent. I mean, they pretty much, threw him to the wolves, or he, might have decided to go and speaking out on things. So that'll be interesting. I'll be definitely looking forward to that.
Okay, this is what scares me about that. You mentioned it, right? This is the first off season since it happened. I mean, Swap Kings took years. I mean, all of these takes years usually to try to pull these things together. This means, like, I'd imagine to get that thing recorded, produced, the deal with Netflix. This is like right after you got fired, you're flirting with people on the ideas of possibly putting together a series. So, full tinfoil hat. I'm going to try not to read that entire thing for facts and only true facts, because it's bizarre for Stallion's case, unless you think he can make a bunch of money.
He probably already made, a bunch of money. Like I said, it's going to go either two ways. Either they threw you to, the wolves and didn't just left you treading water, or, they kind of broke you off and you're just going to kind of pretty much re-say what you've already said, and kind of you just double dip it. It is what it is. Like, you might go into depth a little bit more. So, I mean, it could go either way, or you pissed off and you going to burn everybody.
I hope it's the latter for my entertainment. If it's the latter, that'd be fantastic to watch. Well, if you guys are curious, Sign Stealer, great name for it too. It's just called Sign Stealer. I can't remember exactly when that's coming out, but that'll be interesting, especially when it comes out, because the University of Michigan's pretty upset. Understand, because that's just gonna flip the light right back on.
Can we get a documentary of Reggie Bush and this Heisman stuff, since Johnny got one? Like, that's one I would like to see.
Yeah, deservedly. I'd imagine why. There's definitely people that watch it. I think it'd be pretty damn easy to make your money back.
Indeed.
Unless he just doesn't want to do it. That's the only thing. Seems like an easy way to make money.
I'm telling you.
I'm with you. I think most people are, which is why it's so bizarre. Number 5. Okay. Who's your guess for number 5? This is where it gets interesting.
My guess for 5.
This is media, not coaches, not AP, media preseason poll. We're at Ohio. Go ahead.
I'm gonna throw an elbow. I'm gonna say Minnesota.
Not Minnesota. Number 5. You got one more guess, or do you want the answer?
Wisconsin.
Nope.
All right, good. Give it to me.
Iowa. Yeah, that's why I had to throw in the caveat: media preseason top 25 poll or Big Ten poll. Number 6, Pac-12 school. We already got Oregon in there. I don't have to.
UCLA.
No, USC.
Oh, yeah, USC. Oh, all right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I wouldn't put USC. All the way up there at. We're talking number 6 here, not 16. Wisconsin is at number 7. Number 8. That will be Nebraska. Nebraska finds themselves right smack dab in the middle, above Rutgers, underneath Wisconsin at number 8. You like the fit for Nebraska? To me, that actually feels fair. That's about a.
I was about to say that's a fair assessment, just of what they have of coming in and everything like that. I feel like I said, we're in a better situation last year. You just kind of have to show and kind of see how things take off.
Yep, I think definitely. You couldn't put them any higher because they haven't proven anything yet, and anything lower.
You have freshman. You have a freshman quarterback.
Yep.
Like that. Like that's just like what it's going to be. Like it's going to take them 4 to 6 games to understand. Okay, because you got your non-conference, which will be different, and then you got your in-conference stuff, and then typically your third in-conference game. That's a heavyweight. That's your Penn State, that's your Ohio State, or they might warm you up with Illinois, Indiana, Wisconsin, or Penn State, or something like that. So it's gonna just take them. It's just a bit of an adjustment, and you have to see how they're gonna handle the curve.
Yeah. I agree with all that. And this is too, I think you can even argue with Nebraska being up at 8. Then it might even be too high. Again, 2016, last time you went bowling. I'm always just amazed.
But we're not getting blown out. Like, we're keeping up with teams. It's just our offense just put us in terrible situations.
Absolutely. But they've been doing that forever. Now, me being biased, I think that's right. But I am always a little bit surprised to see people continuously put their trust in Nebraska that even outsiders do think we're going to figure it out after a couple decades of just not figuring it out in the slightest. So that's, again, my bias feels right. I am kind of pleasantly surprised to see the rest of national media also look at Nebraska as a team on the uptick. Number 9, Rutgers. I actually thought that was pretty high for Rutgers. I know they got some good talent out there. And number 10, Washington out of the Pac-12. Any surprise to see Washington all the way at 10?
No. I mean, you lost your whole you lost your AD, you lost your coach, you lost your players. You lost a lot. So I mean, they're for sure in a rebuild if anybody else isn't. I mean, for sure. I think that would be a definition, a dictionary definition of rebuild.
Yeah. That's why I think I might even put them lower. That's why they seem a little odd to me at 10, but whatever. We'll talk about it as we wrap this list up. We're going to rapid fire these last ones here. So at 11, Maryland, 12, Minnesota, 13, Illinois, 14, Northwestern. Just got to look at Nebraska's schedule these past few years. 15, UCLA, 16, Michigan State, 17, Indiana, and dead last, Purdue. Year 2 for Walters as well. What are you seeing in Purdue? Does that feel right to put them at 18 again? That's 2 years in a row. They were the bottom. There's 14, and now there's 18 teams, and they find themselves looking at the bottom again. It's a tough spot to be in.
I mean, it's a hard place to recruit. You know, I mean, they've had some success, you know, when they had Wandell in them, but they haven't really done too much, you know, since. So, I mean, I feel like that's probably fair. I mean, between them and Washington or them and UCLA, I think Purdue still gives them, you know, a run for their money. It's a coin flip to win.
Yeah, I think they're going to be at the bottom. It just feels like a coin flip before both those guys. Throw UCLA in the mix. I do think UCLA is going to be dead last. I think Purdue, they play tough. I think with Indiana, they could fight for it. I think they could fight for dead last.
It depends on how much they want to baby these Pac-12 teams. Like I said, I think they kind of did them a justice with getting some of the Big Ten games out the way early, which I think that will kind of give them more so leverage for later on in the season. Them Pac-12 teams don't want to see no Big Ten, no true Big Ten team after once you get to late October. And you got to travel. You got to go to Michigan State. You got to go to Michigan. You got to go to Columbus. You got to go to Penn State. You got that. You don't want. You got to come here when it's cold at night. Like y'all don't want to do smash mouth football. Yeah, no, that they're not going to be in that. So I think their schedules will be kind of pushing them a little bit better, so they kind of get their Big Ten kind of games, the heavyweights in the first 6 games versus the last 6. Bless you.
I appreciate that. But yeah, I'm 100% in agreement with you. I will say, let's go through this list though. I think because UCLA, I think that weather thing, it's gonna be tough. I don't care.
It's gonna be tough on all Pac-12 teams.
Yeah,
the weather here is the weather in the Midwest and the places that you got to play is completely different. This Oregon offense that you got an experienced quarterback coming in, he still played in Oklahoma. The coldest he probably played was Kansas. Like all them other schools that you played in either got a dome or it's hot. So y'all are going to be new to the area. Teams are not going to be able to sling it through, 50, 60 mile per hour winds, cold. Dudes are not going to want to catch and everything like that. So like your high powered offense of what you are used to working at and everything like that won't be as functional as high. You cold, you wet, and you get hit. You don't want it. They're not going to want that. They're going to fold late second going on into the third quarter. Most big Pac-12 teams.
I think that's why Ohio State's going to dominate because that's one of the schools they think the Pac-12, some of those are going to be trying to be like Ohio State. And there's a whole new wrinkle to Ohio State. It's still
everybody wanted the Phantom, so they went and got a Chrysler 300. It looked like the Phantom until a Phantom actually pull up next to it.
Yep.
So absolutely. I mean, you can want to be like Ohio State all you want to. Come to Columbus late October. Yeah. We'll see how electrifying Oregon is when you got an assault a SWAT team on a defensive line of Ohio State coming for your head. It ain't gonna be the same.
Yeah, there's a reason why a lot of great wide receivers come out of Ohio State. Not only are they the best wide receivers, they know how to play in horrible weather and still put up crazy numbers.
It don't rain, sleet, snow. It don't matter. I think that's just the thing out of the Big Ten period. Like you kind of get well versed with weather conditions, so it don't matter. You know, the ball travels differently through the air. You know, when it's cold or you know when it's raining and everything like that. So you got to kind of play smash mouth football a little bit.
Yeah, and I think it should be interesting because definitely going to play in the Big Ten's favor for year one. Who knows how long that takes if it ever actually evens out, or if we get totally shocked and maybe you do see an Oregon or USC try to take over. But I'm not going to buy too much into that opinion. We got one more break we'll get to, and then we'll go through this list one more time and just kind of revise it. Telling you right now, at number 5, Iowa sticks out like a sore thumb. Probably wouldn't put him that high. So we will rework that list on the last segment here of the Don't Punt Hour. Don't go anywhere. We'll keep it rolling.
The Nebraska legislature will soon meet in special session and may consider a vote to raise consumer prices by imposing a sales tax on advertising. Nebraska's small businesses would be hit hardest, forcing them to raise prices, meaning we'd all pay more for the things we need. Contact your state senator and tell them no ad tax. Visit noadtaxnebraska.com to find your senator's contact information. That's noadtaxnebraska.com. A message from the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Whether you like fishing together or fishing to get away, for the thrill of reeling in a big one, or just going out to have a good time, on the banks of your local pond, at a bend in a river, or on one of our many lakes and reservoirs, you'll always find the perfect place to cast a line. Here, beneath Nebraska skies. Start planning your next fishing adventure today at letsfishnebraska.com. Sponsored by Nebraska Game and Parks, aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
Your child was embarrassed when you arrived at their basketball game. 75% of parents or guardians report current alcohol use. Drinking alcohol can cause harm to children and loved ones. By drinking less, your child will be excited to see you at their basketball game. If you or a loved one is looking for help, find a treatment facility near you at findtreatment.gov. For immediate support, call, text, or chat 988.
Brought to you by Nebraska DHHS in partnership with SAMHSA.
Victor deployed for the first time to Afghanistan in 2003. At 4 a.m, my phone rang. They said, "I regret to inform you that your husband was wounded in action." Victor sustained a moderate traumatic brain injury. I was doing school full-time, and I was also then caring for Victor. One of the most important elements of caregiving is taking care of yourself. I just didn't want to forget that I also had goals and that I also had a life. What I did is I challenged Victor to meet me halfway. There are almost 6 million military and veteran caregivers across the nation. We have our own journey, and we can fulfill that journey at the same time that we are helping our loved one.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving for a free military veterans guide to navigate your caregiving journey and better care for your loved one and yourself. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Are you a veteran looking for a new companion animal? A dog, a cat, or maybe something else? The Nebraska Department of Veterans Affairs Vets Get Pets program can cover up to $350 of your pet adoption fees. Visit veterans.nebraska.gov/vetsgetpets to learn more about program requirements and how to apply. Want to help support the program? Get your Vets Get Pets specialty license plates from the Nebraska DMV. Sponsored by the Nebraska Department of Veterans Affairs. Aired with the Nebraska Broadcasters Association and this station.
This is area race announcer James Rowland. Join me and Bree Fansteel every Sunday night from 7 to 8 on 93.7 The Ticket for the Finish Line, where we cover all things motorsports from local racing to racing around the world. Every Sunday night from 7 to 8 on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com.
Football season is nearly here, and your long wait for year 2 of Matt Rule is almost over. Gear up for the season with 93.7 The Ticket's coverage of Big Ten Media Days from July 23rd to the 25th, live from Lucas Oil Stadium in Indianapolis. Jay Foreman, Amon Green, Adam Carricker, Chancellor Brewington, Derek Pierson, Steve Sipple, Jake Sorensen, and Nick Sainer will be in Indy for our shows Tuesday through Thursday. getting the latest news from Nebraska and everyone else around the conference. Coverage of Big Ten Media Days is brought to you by 1890 Nebraska, Stevens and Smith Construction, The Complex, Warhorse Casino, and Riddles Jewelry.
Mario fue pintor más de 30 años. Cuando me dijo que se le estaban olvidando las cosas, fue difícil. Un día me dijeron que pintara el marco del lado por dentro y pinté el lado de afuera.
Yo le diría a la gente que le diga a su familia lo que está pasando con él.
Si algo se nota diferente, podría ser Alzheimer. Es momento de hablarlo. Visita alz.org/nuestras historias para saber más. Un mensaje de The Alzheimer's Association y The Ad Council.
This is the Don't Punt Hour on 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. Here is your host, Pierson-El.
All right, welcome back in. Final segment of the Don't Punt Hour. We got Pierson-El, the host, as always, streaming in. We went through the preseason Big Ten media polls, going 1 through 18 now, as we got the Pac-12 members now all in officially this year for the 2024 season. Real quick reminder, and we're going to switch these around if we would. Ohio State, Oregon, Penn State, Michigan, Iowa, USC, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Rutgers, Washington, Maryland, Minnesota, Illinois, Northwestern, UCLA, Michigan State, Indiana, and then Purdue at dead last. With that being said, that's the order 1 through 18, with Ohio State being at the very top. Pierson-El, which one sticks out first? That if we're going to rework this list,
Iowa.
All right, Iowa 5. Me too. How low?
I will push them like at least 2 to 3 spots.
Okay, 2 to 3 spots. That would put Wisconsin, USC, and Nebraska above them. That feels right for me. Outside of USC, I don't know about them.
USC's their schedule isn't hard, like I said. So I think they'll. I'm comfortable with moving them up a spot or two, just because the back end of their season, they're playing the teams that they normally play.
Okay, what about Wisconsin? Because this is tricky for me. Luke Fickell, it's year 2 now up at Wisconsin. Do you think, because if we're going to do this, we're going to put Wisconsin above Iowa. Do you think year 2, they can cover enough ground for Wisconsin to hold a better record over Iowa?
I would think so. You got teams and kids programs really typically do better in year 2 because it's like, okay, you understand what the expectation is. So, I expect them to probably be somewhat similar of where they, where they were at, of where we've seen them at. Excuse me.
Yeah. I think, okay.
They had an efficient running back. Their running back was good.
Mm-hmm.
They just had terrible quarterback play. But, their quarterback play was still better than.
Hey, that QB run looks pretty nice against Nebraska. I'll say that much. Was it Mertz? I think just killing us with it over and over and over again.
So, I'm cool with moving SC and Wisconsin higher and moving Iowa down.
Okay, let me ask you about Northwestern. I think the Big Pac-12 is about to maybe get a rude awakening into who's the new Northwestern is as well. All the way down at 14.
No, they need to come up as well. Who's right after us at 8?
Okay, so after 8, it's Rutgers at 9. I'm going to guess Northwestern's better than Rutgers.
I would say they're probably even.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then Washington at 10, Maryland at 11.
I'll probably take Northwestern, honestly. Like, people forget, Northwestern is a well-oiled machine. They're fundamentally sound. Them and Iowa are honestly are kind of similar. Just Iowa, I would probably say has better players. They're fundamentally sound. They're not going to be out of a position. They're not going to, cost you the game or anything like that. Like they're smart players. They're physical players. They're like gnats. They're annoying. It's just you just swat them and they just keep on still being there.
That's a perfect way to describe them. Yeah, when I think of Northwest, why they feel like they get disrespect. Yeah, last year was an incredible season. I understand they lost some guys, but there is just something about Northwestern's culture that is truly unique, because Wisconsin just barely got to go bowling last year. Nebraska didn't end up going bowling. You look at a bunch of these teams. Minnesota just barely got in through a rule that they just had enough points as we were breaking it down because there wasn't enough. because they got them with 5 wins. People got to remember that as well. I think Northwestern's better than those guys. I really do.
Yeah.
Now, Wisconsin, I draw the line. I don't think they're better than Wisconsin. No. And for bias sake, I don't think they're going to be better than Nebraska either.
No, like I said, I mean, them and Iowa, they're similar. You never know with those games. Like, those games are always odd scores. You get safeties, field goals. You might have 2 explosive plays on each side, and that's the game.
Yeah. I think every time I've watched Northwestern, that's been the game. Like, if attending live, it's come down to a field goal or special teams play.
I'm telling you, like, it's not a very exciting game, but it's if you're a defensive coordinator, like, you probably love those type of games. Like, whose defense is gonna mess up first?
Well, it's always exciting. I gotta say,
it's always something new. I wouldn't say exciting. It's just like I never seen a gameplay like that, so I don't know if that's exciting or not. But I mean, it's unique. I'll say it's unique.
Okay, the best way I can, the potential for the most wild finish.
Period.
Because it's a field goal, it's a Ron Kellogg to Westerkamp,
it's a block kick, ran back for a touchdown. It's a unique game. Period.
It is very much like Iowa. The more we talk about Northwestern, the more the comparisons are like
Iowa just have better athletes. That's just what it is.
Better development too. As much as it kills me to say it, you look at their development, there's a reason that they're able to do what they do consistently despite having atrocious offenses. They know how to develop on defense.
Period.
Offense, they know how to get a line and tight ends together. By quarterback, I don't know what that's all about. I do imagine the allure of playing for Iowa makes it very difficult at times to recruit elite level quarterbacs.
I mean, they're not air raid. Like, you know what type of time it is. Like, that's, some 2 tight ends, 3 tight ends, 12 personnel, 22 personnel, a very, throwing darts here and there. Like, quarterbacks, they want to air things out. They want to play in a high profile system and whatnot. Iowa's just not that. Iowa's not the shiny car. They're the 2000 Honda Accord that just gets you from point A to point B.
I might even be older than that. It's like a 85 Buick LeSabre at this point. Reliable, but beat up. All right. With that being said, we're going to wrap it up here. That's been the Don't Punt Hour. Shout out to Morning Pierson-El. As always, we'll do it again tomorrow.